All right, guys. So, third call of the cosmic check-in. Today, I want to talk to you about the importance and the meaning of the sun and the moon in our chart that represent our parents. So the sun is the father and the moon is the mother. And they, more often than not, they don't really have like an aspect with each other, but when they do, what it means, and even if they don't, it has a meaning. And we're just gonna go check that out if somebody has an angle between their sun and moon. And I just kind of want to cover everything, and then we will see if there's examples. It's always handy. So the sun represents, other than the ego, it represents also the father. So it's basically your subconscious male archetype. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. It's basically the subconscious mind, the male part of your subconscious mind. And if you are a man, this is what's available to you as an example. So this is probably the kind of man that you can become. And as a female, this is the kind of man that you will attract as a partner into your life. And then with the moon, it's the feminine energy, it's the motherly energy, so it's the subconscious female archetype. And as a woman, this is the kind of women that we can become. This is the pattern that we receive. And as a male, this is the kind of partner, female partner that you can attract into your life. So basically, when you have the sun and the moon, it can show certain things. First of all, your parents' relationship and the dynamic between them, but it can also show how you will show up in relationship dynamics and what kind of parent you will become, because it's all connected, right? Like we receive our programming from our parents. There are 5 angles, and then the 6th when there's no angle that I want to talk about. And the first one is the conjunction. So it's, I don't know if you guys can see it, but I like these little cards. Maybe I will have to turn off my background. So conjunction means that 2 planetary objects are right next to each other, and there's always 5 degrees, or we call it, so 5 degrees, movement within the angles. So if it's between 0 and 5 degrees, we see it as a conjunction. And conjunction is usually a union, kind of a merging kind of energy of 2 planetary objects, but it also highly depends on which 2 objects are merging. Because in this case, the sun and the moon, they are polar opposite energies of each other. So in this case, they cannot really merge because they are conflicted, right? So what happens in a parental dynamic, when the sun and moon are conjunct, the sun will always suffer. It means that the sun is not strong enough because the moon can come so close to it. The sun is like this ball of fire, right? Like it's really this kind of creation energy. So if the moon can be so close to it, it means that the sun is not strong enough. So what happens in this kind of relationship dynamic, people who have this angle in their chart, sun and moon conjunct, it's usually the mother is kind of like outshining the father. Like the father is a little bit behind the scenes, like not so in the forefront of the action, like he doesn't feel maybe heard or seen, and the mother is running the show. But basically, whatever angle is going on between the parents or between the planets, it's possible to supplement this kind of energy, just as with the elements last week, what we talked about, if you have an element that is the least dominant in your chart. So in this case, for the father of the person whose chart is, and for the person whose chart we're looking at, it's both a smart thing to do to supplement the energies of the sun, which I will also get back to later how we can do that, but it's very similar to what we talked about with the elements. So it's with practices and colors and all this kind of stuff. So in this case, when the sun and the moon are conjunct, it's sadly the sun that loses. And then I will just go to the next one. So the next angle that we look at, it's called a sextile, and it's a 60-degree angle between 2 planetary objects. And in this case, it's usually kind of like a positive energy. But when it comes to relationship dynamics, it basically means that you have three things: living together, marriage, and children. And you can choose two out of these three. So you will not go to like the whole, living together, getting married, and having children, living happily ever after. One of the three will probably fall away, or if that happens, the relationship will not survive it. So, for example, it's possible for people to live together, have children, but it's probably best for them not to get married, or they don't have the desire. And if or when they do, the relationship will suffer. Or they are living together, they are married, but they don't have children, and if and when they do, the relationship will suffer. But there are also other ways that this can represent itself, or like it can manifest. So it can be that the parents were not legally married at the time when of the birth or the consumption of the baby, or it might be that it was sort of like a love affair, or like somebody had a lover and it wasn't supposed to be that way. Or it can also manifest in a way that the parents are wearing some sort of like a pink glasses, that they are not really in reality. Like this is just like a very idyllic kind of relationship, but then reality hits and then it cannot be fulfilled. And then it can also manifest in a way that the parents are living a different life to the outside world than who they really are inside. So it's not so straightforward as with the conjunction, but these are all scenarios with this kind of angle that can manifest. And again, you can supplement for someone who has this in their chart. You can supplement both the sun and the moon energies as they are needed. And as I said, I will get back to that later. The next angle is called the square, and it's like a 90-degree angle. So it's an angle that is ruled by Pluto and Scorpio energies. So it has a lot to do like with karma and kind of like this rebirth and like this kind of phoenix from the ashes energy. So it's kind of an irritating angle. It's not such a favorable angle like the sextile was. And basically it's kind of like when the parents both have like kind of this volcanic energy, that there's something suppressed, there's something that they are not really living in that kind of energy, or they are not allowed to follow certain passions or what they really want to do. They are allowed to follow their dreams, and then that kind of makes everything a little bit like conflicted or unstable or polarized kind of dynamic. And as the person who has this in the chart, they themselves can also become in their adult years like kind of repeating these patterns, obviously, like this kind of, oh, I want to marry you, I want you, I can't live without you. And then it's like, oh no, leave me alone, I don't want to see you, kind of like this back and forth, like this undecisive kind of pulsating energy.
You've just described like my entire relationship energy from the first 38 years of my life.
Well, but you don't have a square in your chart for the sun and the moon. I think you have a trine, right?
I don't know. I didn't
I
pull mine
sent
up.
you, wait, because I sent you your chart, and I just remember this because yours and Dave's is like really creepy how similar you guys are. And I know that Dave, you have a trine. So
Dave swallows hard every time you bring that up.
yeah, I think Brandon, you also have a trine actually. Well, it's like an orb 8, so it's not that strong.
Where
Um,
are you looking on the chart?
it's the main aspect, so it's one of those little screenshots that I put in your chart, and then you can see
Okay.
there. But then, of course, other than the aspects, so what kind of angle the sun and the moon has, what also is an influence is in which house the sun and the moon are, and which which zodiac sign. So we will also get into that, but I'm afraid it's going to be too much for today. But since probably everyone looked up their sun and moon, maybe we can just quickly go through that. I know that you both, Brandon and Dave, you both have both your sun and moon in water signs. I remember that. So that can also be that it feels like you have the square energy from your sun and moon, but it's in fact it's other factors that just kind of represent the same energies. Because I think your Scorpio sun, right? Which, as I said, this angle, the square, is ruled by Pluto and Scorpio. So it's very similar Scorpion energy. It's the same kind of, death and rebirth and transformation and all of that. And your moon was, for you, your moon was in Cancer. But anyway, so
my sun is in Pisces, my moon is in Scorpio.
Scorpio, yeah. And I think for you, Brandon, it's your sun is in Scorpio and your moon is in Cancer. So, but it also depends on which house, and it can still have a very similar effect what you say. But actually, you both have a trine, which is 120 degrees angle, which is really a positive angle. But of course, that's again just interpretation. So the trine is basically a kind of a Jupiter, like Sagittarius energy. So it's expansive, it's optimistic, it's kind of like a unlimited flow of energy. But people who have this angle, it's kind of like, those nesting dolls. I think that's the way to describe. So it's like there's so many layers to the personality. So you have a personality that is just like to the outside world, and then you have a personality for work, and then you have one for your friends, and then you have one for your family, and then you have one for your partner, and then the smallest doll inside, it's who you really, really are, but you're always putting all these kind of layers on top of yourself to kind of put that mask, whichever you need, that hat that you need to wear depending relationship. But so this kind of relationships, when you have a trine in your chart, it usually ends in marriage and or children, because it's really like that kind of energy where both parents can step into their full power as partners and as parents. It usually also has some sort of a relationship to like abroad or traveling or moving across states or stuff like that. Like it's not we buy a house and then we live there until the end of our days. So that can also be a theme for this kind of energy. But this is basically viewed as one of the most positive aspects that you can have between planet a trine. And then finally, the last one is opposition. So it's a 180 degree when they are like literally across from each other. And this one is also sort of a karmic relationship, but not as like irritative as the square, but it's more like when people marry for the convenience, like, yeah, our families really get along well and it kind of makes sense, or when people get married for financial reasons, or the emotions are not so much in play. It's like, or for political reasons, to get ahead, for to please the family, or to get a loan. This opposition can also be like some sort of unfulfilled longing, like, there was always a chemistry, but then the timing was never right. Like the one was in a relationship or had to go work somewhere else. And then, it's kind of like this constantly being off and waiting for each other, but then they never meet each other on the same timeline. Or it can also be like a big age gap. And to help this kind of energy in your chart, it's really important to do kind of shadow work. And also, I forgot to say, with also the square, like past life regressions and all this kind of karmic work is really good to dissolve this energy, because this is something that you are already born with, so you cannot change it. But it's also your pattern. You receive this not only as your parents, but it's also your programming, how you will go further, especially how you will show up in your relationships. So there's always ways to kind of influence that energy. And in this case, it's also very important to supplement the sun and the moon energies. And then finally, I just want to talk about the no aspect. So when the sun and the moon are not in a specific angle with each other, and that's the most common. It's like 9 out of 10 times that's the case. And these parents usually they marry, they meet each other, they have two or three children, but usually before the 18th birthday of their youngest child, the relationship will end up in like separation, divorce, or an affair, or death, or so the relationship they will not stay together. So that's, as you probably know from your own experience, this is why this is the most common. I mean, I know very few people whose parents are still happily married. And basically in this case, it's always necessary to supplement both sun and the moon energies, because there's definitely trauma whenever there's separation. And then there's also a distinction between if you were born before 1980 or after 1980. It's a landing plane or the taking off plane concept. So if you were born before 80, then you will probably have like marriage and kids like very early on. And then by the time of like you're 40, 45, you're kind of contemplating on getting a divorce. And then there's the people born after 85, it's the taking off plane, which is married and kids are delayed for way after the 30th or never even happen, or it's not in the cards. So it's basically kind of a shift, a generational shift that we just kind of see when there is no aspect between the sun and the moon. So I was wondering if that made sense, or if you guys have any questions. Just gonna check if Becca wrote something.
I find a lot of it fascinating, but I also find it very confusing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is just like scratching the surface, because we also need to look at which sign and which house the sun and the moon are, because that obviously also has an influence. But I find it interesting because you guys both have an aspect between sun and moon. If that resonated with you at all in any way, that what I told you about the trine, because that's basically the most positive aspect of all the aspects that we look for between planets.
Mm.
Dave?
I hear what you're saying, but it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Okay.
Like, I feel like you and I could sit on a call for
Yeah, probably.
a long time, because I'm truly fascinated by everything astrology, right? I have never dove deep into it. Like, you and Ramsey could have a conversation that I don't understand. Like, but I find it to be so true, right? It's labeled as pseudoscience, and it is so not pseudo in any way. I feel like there are pieces of it that you can't ignore. But
Yeah, and if
like,
you know,
I look at my chart and I go, okay,
it's the only pseudoscience that is completely unchanged for thousands of years, and it's still,
thousands of years.
it's like every culture you look at, they all came to the same conclusion. So that's how pseudoscience it is. But for example, what I said about the nesting dolls, I think that's kind of like one of the major themes of this, the trine element. Does that make sense? Or do you recognize anything in your parents that they have like different personalities, or they show themselves differently on different like aspects of life? Like they have like a working personality, and then with the friends and with family.
With my parents?
It's about your parents, so it's not about you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, my mother was a correction officer, so she showed up for work
Yeah.
as Billy Badass with
Okay.
combat boots on, you know, and she she sort of showed up at home that way, but she had a different personality at home. Well, at least she tried to, you know. And yeah, my dad, one of the issues I had with my dad was he showed up differently everywhere he went. He was never the same person. Very the feeling was very disingenuous or very unauthentic, if you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the distance or the traveling aspect of it, does that come into play in your case that I was mentioning?
What distance travel?
So it's basically it usually has like an element of like going abroad or moving across states or like not staying the same place or just somehow it's it has that
My mother
not
can't sit still.
necessarily. Hmm?
Yeah, my mother can't sit still.
Okay.
Like she talks about loving to be home, but she only talks about loving to be home when she's been on a trip for 7 to 10 days. And then
Okay.
when she's home, she can't wait to leave and go out on the trip.
Yeah, okay, but it's really just like the abroad is a possible element, but it doesn't have to be.
We grew up with a camper and a motorhome, and we were always on the road,
Yeah.
always visiting another state. By the time I was so stupid, but by the time I was 14, I had been on every roller coaster on the states that border the
Oh
east
wow.
coast of the United States.
Okay.
Because that was our parent. It was my parents' thing. We got in the motorhome, and we went to a campground, and went to an amusement park, and had a crazy day on roller coasters.
Mhm.
And then I guess for me, I mean, I'm on my fifth state. I've moved cross country
Yeah.
8 times.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well, I mean, I definitely want to look at the houses and the signs. Maybe that's something we can do next time because I kind of wanted
Yeah.
to build on each other. But what I just quickly wanted to say, because I mentioned that you can supplement the energies of the sun and the moon in most cases. I mean, it's not necessary, but it's just a wise thing to do. So I just wanted to touch upon that, like how do you basically do that? So the sun activities, the day of the sun of the weeks, it's actually Sunday, surprise, surprise. So wearing like bold orange and like gold clothing or any kind of physical activity as well that includes sweating. So if you do that on a Sunday, that is a very sun energy situation, like just going outside, um, doing any kind of practice that connects you with the sun. And again, you can get totally creative. This is not like set in stone. Whatever the sun represents to you, it can be a song, it can be something visual, it can be with colors. And then for the moon, so the moon is Monday, and it's kind of anything reflective. So any kind of, because that's what the moon really is, right? The moon doesn't have its own light. It's just reflects the sun's light. So any kind of reflective practice. So it can be journaling, it can be meditation, it just can be like taking a walk and contemplating on what happened last week. And also the colors. So it's like silvers and whites and like light blues and all this kind of stuff. So those are the things that you can actually do to supplement. Well, there are other things, but these are the easy things that anyone can do to supplement certain energies. So for the sun, it's really Sunday and like the vibrant sun colors, and anything with sweating, you just go for a sauna or like for a run or anything that makes you sweat. And for the moon, it's the Monday, and it's with the soft whites and silvers and everything that is reflective. It can even be just like standing in front of the mirror and saying like affirmations to yourself. Doesn't get any more reflective than that, right? So
Yeah.
any kind of, it can also be like if you have a disco ball at home, just put on your favorite song and put on the disco ball and just like dance, so it, whatever pops into your mind. This is just my crazy mind, coming up with examples, but it really cannot, it's not like, boxed in. It can just be whatever that element represents to you, and how you connect with it. So I hope this was a little bit helpful and clear, but I will also make a post about it and put some, more like actionable items in there. And I definitely love to hear your thoughts on it. And I will probably take it from here, and we will continue with the houses and the zodiac signs of the sun and the moon and their relationship and meaning and how it affects the parents, and by that us as well. So any
Okay.
questions or anything you guys want to add?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, that was interesting between the whole 80, but between 80, born after 80, you don't have children, born before 80, you do type stuff. I didn't know about all that stuff.
Yeah, it's
That's me.
actually something that in my life it's very, very present. Like most of my friends who are my age, I can count on one hand who have kids and are married. I never thought I was going to be married, so but I got married at 40. So, for me even, it's like it was never the plan, and when I got there it was like when I was 40. So, I really, really feel that very, very much on my own skin, that me and my generation are very much the taking off plane. Um, so yeah, I'm happy that you learned something new. Okay,
Interesting.
guys, I'm going to wrap it up. I'll see you next week, and I'll see you in the comments as well. Ciao,
Thank you,
ciao.
Dinka.
Bye bye.